What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka Toe Tag and Tambo. We're back for the American Express. We got the Strokes Gain Show. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe down in the bottom. Run Pure Sports. We're here back with my two boys this week. We got Uncle T back. We got Ollie Snyder, Jans, over there, the hatless wonder this week. You didn't bring out the thorn hat. And then Harry Terry Niehaus, Uncle T. Uncle T, got to kick it over to you, my boy. Back in the booth, man. How are things going this week?
Yeah, it's great to be back with you two. I missed you guys last week and wasn't able to make it. Again, Tambo, I talked to you guys offline. Get me through these first 2 months of the year. I got some stuff with my other job and we'll kind of battle through it. You guys got my back when I'm not here, but it's great to be back with you guys this week. I did go back and listen to your all show last week. You guys crushed it, had some great takes. And I think we got a really good tournament this week. 3 different courses. We'll let Schneider break it down here in a minute, but looking forward to it and great to be back.
Yeah, love having you back, man. It's going to be a good show here tonight. Last week was great. I know for me, it wasn't the best week all around. I had plenty of opportunity going into Sunday. It was just awesome. In the large $15 tournament, it was like me up there in the top 30, Hoop, Big T, and then JSU had like 30 entries clicking in around us that I saw, at least with the Run Pure logos. He ended up finishing 4th. I know it could have been like a 2nd, so it was a tough run up, but still a good week for him. Hoopster won the 100K over there. A lot of the members posted screenshots into the chat in Discord, so that was awesome to see. Snyder just ripping it up on Showdown like always. I'll bring him in now. Ollie Snyder, Jans, you like that one, Snyder? The hatless wonder, for those who know. If you know, you know. What's going on, man?
Yeah, it's going good here. I had a pretty good week myself last week. The MME was a little rough. Some of my value guys didn't pan out how I was hoping, but cash was really good. My single entry and 3 maxes did pretty well. So it was all in all a pretty good week. And yeah, we had a pretty good day on the Showdown scene there again. It's going to be interesting this week with the 3 courses. I'll get into that here in a little bit, but yeah, I think we're going to have an edge in Showdown this week again, and looking forward to another great week here with this interesting format we have.
Yeah, certainly. And we'll get into that in a minute because we definitely we're going to talk about some strategy when it comes to things like Showdown, the 3-course rotation, all that. A lot of people will talk about it out there, but it's good just to rehash it to make sure everybody's on the same page. We know where we're going with it. You'll, of course, have the playbooks out, things like that over at Run Pure Sports. So get over there. If you're not already over there and signed up, get into the Discord with us. A lot of fun, a lot of back and forth, talk narratives a lot. My boy Butters, everyone in the chat. So it's fun. Before we get into it today, we'll get this out of the way quick, early. Great promotion going on over with Underdog, the playoff best ball. Use promo code RUNPURE. It's $100 deposit match bonus. So get over there. I think we're going to have some content. Snyder and the main man behind the scenes, or as behind the sticks, as Title likes to say, our boy Simon. You guys did some great best ball content going into the regular season, had some run out down the end. Didn't quite go your way, but I expect, great things out of that, more content from you guys. So get on over to Underdog, use promo code RUNPURE, get your $100 deposit match. Again, if you haven't hit that like button, do that for us. Let's get into the mix though here, Snyder. I'm going to kick it over to you. Talk to us a little bit about what you know, the course, stats, things that you want to go through, and then we can bring up some of the strategy later for Showdown or as you're mixing it in and talking about each course.
Yeah, we're going to have a 3-course rotation here this week. La Quinta should play the easiest. Many people are going to kind of look to target them for Showdown and such this week. It's going to play right around 7,000 yards, par 72. It's going to be one of the more attackable courses here. I mean, all of them are going to be pretty easy, but this one is the one that I think we should see the lowest scores on. It's going to have some smaller greens too, so it's going to have I think they're going to putt pretty easy on this course with the smaller greens. You can have shorter putts, less 3 putts here to worry about. Then the next one we're going to get into is the Nicklaus Tournament course. It's going to play, I think it's going to play the second easiest here. It's going to measure just under 7,200 yards. The greens on this course are going to be nearly twice as big as La Quinta, though. They're going to be right around 7,700 square feet on average here. The rough on all 3 of these courses are going to be fairly short, though. I'd say the rough is going to be cut right around 2 inches or so, so that's not going to bring in too big of an issue for any of these guys. The golfers are going to be playing this die course, the PGA West, and twice if they make the cut. It's going to be played on Sunday for the final round. It plays as a par 72, stretching just over 7,100 yards. It's going to play the toughest of the 3. It was there were some funny stories back in when this course was first put into the rotation here, like back in the 1980s, 1987, I think is when the first course that came on. And Dye built this course with the stipulations of he wanted this to be the toughest course on tour. And it was at the time. Golfers got mad. I think the final day on one of the events they had here was right around 74. They petitioned to get it off the tour, and it actually happened for a while. So that's just kind of an interesting tidbit there. But Patrick Cantlay tore this place up last year. He shot 61 on Sunday. So, I mean, regardless, though, in this event, the golfers are going to need to be approaching 20-plus better under par if they want to be in contention here late on Sunday. It's going to be a birdie fest again. PGA West is going to have water and play on nearly half the holes here. It's going to present a pretty challenging 3-hole stretch, too. 16 is going to be a risk reward par 5. 17 is going to be an island green here, par 3. It's similar to the one on Sawgrass, but this one's going to play like right around 167 yards. Versus the shorter shot on Sawgrass. Number 18 is going to have a water-lined par 4 here. Some of the key stats I'll be looking at this week: strokes gained, approach, opportunities gained off the tee, proximity 150 to 175, and strokes gained Pete Dye courses.
Yeah, the Pete Dye references all throughout, right? Sawgrass. Siwoo, by the way, won here last year, obviously a former Players winner. We'll talk about a guy later on that's $8,500, Ricky Fowler. That's his claim to fame as well. He's going to come up when we get through the show. Uncle T, anything else you want to add here on the courses, strategy, stats, anything you've got that comes to mind before we hop in?
No, I think Snyder broke it down pretty good. The only thing I will say is there is a slight difference, at least going in, like Snyder mentioned, of the 3 courses, but as we see the weekend go on, if we see a difference maybe this year compared, different than the last and how they've played, it might affect Showdown more on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? We go in and see, for whatever reason, it plays a little bit different, something that we're not thinking of right now. I think it does affect our strategy going into the weekend. Like you said, La Quinta, typically you'll want to target them a little bit, but again, year to year, you just never know, with the little differences that they may have. You might want to target Showdown guys Friday, mainly Saturday, Sunday, according to what Thursday and Friday brought to us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, great point too, between you and Snyder bringing it up. Like last year was totally different with everything going on with COVID. They'd scrapped the Pro-Am portion of it. And again, too, just so people know, just to clarify it one more time, we will get 3 rounds out of everybody here. And then the cut is after the 54 holes going into Sunday. So keep that in mind. The same narrative will be going around all week long. Oh, I think it was Timothy Frank, a fantasy golf man on Twitter. He used to do some stuff and some course history sheets and things like that. Great dude. Just funny. He brought it up and said, there's always a narrative, right? If they'll be good because they get 3 rounds and they could still do it. Sunday's tougher pin placement. So maybe that, 5 out of 6s will still be good, so on and so forth. Bottom line is we're playing to get guys through 4 rounds, no matter what. That's the idea when you're setting up your roster construction. You can hope for the min cashes and opportunities and things to fall your way. If it ends up being a 5 out of 6 and the higher dollar smaller field, even more possibilities of that happening or getting you some more cash that way. But for the most part, 6 of 6 is king. You're going to need that. So we'll dive in. We'll get to it. There is going to be some heavy strategy conversation, I think, right out of the gates here. And Snyder, I'll start with you. The 10K range is small. It's Rahm, Cantlay, Scheffler, and Finau, but it's going to be really lopsided to where that ownership goes. And it's pretty obvious it's to the guys at the top, and in particular, the guy at the very top, Mr. Jon Rahm. The conversation obviously around Cam Smith brought his absolute A++ game, barely beat Rahm. Rahm brought like his B- or C game even maybe, and ended up being right there in the mix, almost taking it away. So what are your thoughts up here at the top? And then any just general strategy you got as far as roster construction goes? It should be a heavy stars and scrubs week tied in with the fact that we got those 3 guaranteed rounds.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting up here at top. Jon Rahm and Patrick Cantlay are going to be the 2 highest owned golfers in the field. It looks like as of this moment, they're going to be both approaching, it looks like 30% ownership, maybe even higher than that, which is pretty crazy to see both of these high price guys both up around that ownership. I think Rahm's the play I'm going to go with here. It's hard to dispute either of these 2 guys, though, for sure. They're definitely the class of the field. Rahm ranks number 1 in strokes gained total over the last 50 rounds. First in ball striking, par 5 scoring, DraftKings points, all that. He's number 1. Won this event back in 2018 and finished 6th in 2019. He has finished T3 or better in 5 of his last 7 events. So definitely look for Rahm to be right there in contention come Sunday. Patrick Cantlay, he's another guy right there. but I have seen in the betting markets on DraftKings specifically, he's a pretty big underdog to Rahm. They've got Rahm listed as a minus 165 favorite over Cantlay. And if they're both going to be 35% owned, I'm just going to go with Rahm and X Cantlay in that situation and then take my chances there from there on. I mean, Cantlay's a Cali kid. He's great on these overseeded tracks early in the year. I mean, there's really nothing you can say bad about Cantlay. I think I'm just going to make a stand and go Rahm over Cantlay and then move onward to Scotty Scheffler. He's a big upside golfer too. Just doesn't have that winning upside. I've been waiting and hoping that he can get a win here sometime, but man, he was in the top 10 8 times last year, has 2 top 5 finishes in November. I mean, he did miss the cut here last year, but finished third the year before. So I think Scheffler's a fine option in this price range. The lowest guy I think in this 10K range is going to be Tony Finau. He's been struggling with the accuracy off the tee, hitting under 60% of his fairways in 4 of the last 6 events, but the rough isn't too penal here. But on the die track, though, you definitely need to play position golf on these die tracks. So I tend to a little worry about him, but I think Finau is a great option as a leverage play in this range. He's been great throughout. He's been kind of coming around. Good course history here, finishing 4th last year. He was in contention until he hit the ball in the water late in that round. 14th the year before here. So I think I'm going to go with Finau here as my second favorite in this range. I'm seeing him coming in around, I think he's going to be right around that 7 to 9% ownership, which is, you get Finau and Cantlay. I mean, if Finau plays his best game, he can definitely compete with Cantlay at way lower ownership.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something to that. He's not my favorite down there, but you think about last week with Hideki, right? Everyone had all these guys above and below him. I think this is a little bit of a different case, being that Jon Rahm is just so good at the top. Cantlay, hell of a year, winning the Tour Championship, having everything go his way, multiple tournaments. Even if he did get one of those wins in a tournament that Rahm was likely to win, it was still one hell of a year for Patrick Cantlay. Uncle T, what are your thoughts up here? And then once you go through the guys and sort of what you think about with them, talk to me some about the strategy of playing 2 of these guys versus 1 and then dropping down as it pertains to the overall slate and just some of those other ranges.
Yeah, I mean, Snyder broke it down pretty well. I mean, normally we see 5, 6, and at times 7 guys above 10K. We've only got 4 of them this week, and you can really make a case for sure for all 4. While we like to try to eliminate a couple right away, or we have quick fades, I probably will be out on Finau. I'll start at the bottom of the range. I'll probably be out on him. But I do think something that's interesting, he seems to always play well. I don't remember which podcast I was listening to today, and they said that he plays well in these multiple rotation courses, like where you're playing multiple courses for a tournament. He's got like 4 or 5 top 10s or top 12s the last, 5 or 6 events. So not that that's something solely to go on, but I do think it's interesting at the very least. Like Snyder said, he's definitely going to be the lowest owned of the group by a long shot, I think. But going up top, I think I'm going to side with Rahm here as well. How about this? He starts out the year in Kapalua minus 33, right? And obviously lost by 1 stroke to Cam Smith a couple weeks ago. He won here in 2018. Nothing not to like about Rahm. And honestly, in this type of a field, if he was 11-5, 11-6, I would probably have him here as well. So at 11-3, I think it's definitely more than fair. He's 4.5 or 5 to 1 in most betting markets to win the golf tournament. So I'll probably side with him over Patrick Cantlay. Like you guys mentioned, he closed with a 61 here last year and almost tracked down Siwoo Kim. He's obviously, if you don't like Rahm, it's you can clearly go down to Cantlay. I don't think I would be playing them together at all. Scheffler's the interesting one. I do wish he was a few $100 cheaper, to where we had a little bit more of a discount off of Cantlay, being the guy right above him. But I do think he's a viable play here. 3 top 5s his last 4 events. He debuted here, like Snyder said, with a T3 in 2019, did miss the cut last year. But for me, up top, I'm probably going to go Rahm and Scheffler, and I don't mind playing them together. Now to segue into my answer, Tambo, of what you said about roster construction this week. I don't mind playing maybe Rahm and Scheffler up top. Now, we'll get to it later in the show, but it will be an interesting build because I don't like a ton under 7K this week, and I'm hoping maybe you guys can add a couple players to my pool that, I don't have in there now under 7K. that might help this build. And I don't necessarily care for the 8K range. So it'll definitely be interesting to try to jam two of these guys in. But as we go through the show, maybe we can work out a few more plays that will allow that to happen.
Yeah, and I like some of that breakdown. You guys know what it is here. We always talk about it. Like every show in the industry is going to talk about this play, that play. And we do that because we know that's what people want. But I also like to bring in the roster construction, the theory, the stuff that goes with that. And you said a couple things there that stood out to me because the 8K range will go overlooked. We'll get to that later probably for good reason. I think it's just a bad range. I'm with you there, Uncle T. A couple other thoughts you brought up. Just going back to the Tony Finau thing, it's kind of where he gets his warm up on. If you go back to 2020, got the numbers up here now, the Amex 14th. Then he went 6th at the Farmers, 2nd at the Waste Management, where he lost in that playoff to Webb Simpson. Then you go back to last year, 4th here at the Amex, 2nd at the Farmers, 2nd at the Genesis in that playoff loss to Max Homa. So now you go back to it this year, 19th at the Century, but remember, 38 guys. So that's sort of where that stems from. It's not really a great finish there, but what's the warm-up like coming in? Is this still going to be sort of a 20th place? That's probably not going to cut it coming in. So you got to pick your spots here. Obviously, Rahm and Cantlay are great up top. I do like that what you said there with Scheffler. I call it all the time. Many that have watched me in the past or plenty before have known what I say is like paying up for probability. The fact that he's 10-6 and the fact that Cantlay and Rahm are right there leaves less on Scheffler. Scheffler's a guy with immense upside, can go low. Obviously, you're going to have to pick your spots and take the chance. But if you've got some, Rahm answer lineups or something, you can drop down to Scheffler and with that money go up from answer, have two really strong guys at the top still, and just a completely different roster construction. I do think, to Benay's point in the chat, shout out to Benay. He won the Fantasy Golf Degenerates Tournament of Champions year-long league where he had to win the tournament and then get into the finals with all the other winners and shipped it. So congrats to him. Reach out to me, by the way, Benay. I still got some prizes for you there. But he said, do you think Rahm and Cantlay together will be popular? And look, we're spending a little more time on this upper range because as small as it is, this makes the difference on the week, I think, with Rahm and Cantlay up there and just how powerful they are over the rest in the field and with their price tags associated with them probably being less than they should be. I think it could be a little more popular than we think. But what I will say with that is there is still plenty of options. I know Snyder hit me up earlier today, said we might have to take it easy in that 7K range and split it up a little bit. There's plenty of guys in there that we like, especially that we can go to. But Snyder, what are your thoughts on how popular Rahm and Cantlay will be? And then if so, who cares? Or what are your thoughts that go with that?
Yeah, I've heard some speculation over the few podcasts I've listened to throughout the day. I think a lot of people are going to go the Stars and Scrubs build, and they're going to just jam in Rahm and Cantlay, knowing they have 3 rounds where they can hopefully try and get lucky with some of these punts down there. I don't think I'm going to do it because I'm just going to play Rahm. I don't know how much Finau I'm going to play either. I think I'm just going to go Rahm, and then I like a lot of these guys in the 9K range, so I'm probably just going to go Rahm, mix in some of these 9K guys, and then go down to that 7K range where I have a ton of guys that I have interest in. So for me, I think that might be kind of getting different, as I think a lot of people are going to be more Stars and Scrubs than me, where I'm just going to go like 1 star and then kind of even build from there, which possibly might get me a little of different. And I'm going to have some builds where I don't even play any of these guys either. I'm going to play 3 or 4 of the 9K guys too, which I don't think is going to be as popular either.
You took the words out of my mouth. That's what I was going to say. I can't go all in on these guys at the top because I like so many guys in the 9K range. And it's fine for me to be heavy there because I really don't like any of the guys in the 8K range. And if they shock or surprise us, so be it. I think that's one of the other things you'll see in all the articles and all the shows and commentary out there right now of this is a long shots place, man. Landry won here. And these guys are 1,000-to-1 bombs and all this stuff. Yet like the sample size you're giving me is the last 5 years. Like when Rahm decided to show up, he shipped. So it's like, that's where you got to, take these samples and these narratives and really go past some of that and think differently. I think there's plenty of guys in this 9K range that can actually win this tournament. It's not to say a guy in the 8K range can't. These are my lineups, how I want to build. You guys do your own thing, but I'm just giving you my exact thought process. Uncle T, good segue there into the 9K range. If you have final thoughts on those guys at the top and the Stars and Scrubs, go ahead. If not, take us into this 9K range. We got Sung Jae Im down to last week's runner-up finisher, Russell Henley.
Yeah, I think we covered the above 10K range. I'll go into the 9K range, and you guys mentioned it. There's a lot to like. Starting at the top with Sung Jae Im. He was obviously a very big disappointment for a lot of people, including yours truly last week. It just I'm not sure what happened with him. He got off to a bad start and he just was never able to recover. So, we talk about it all the time, though, that the old flop lag, he does have 3 top 12s here his last 3 trips. He did have a T8 at Kapalua the week before. I think Sung JM is not only going to be one of my favorite players this week, he's got a very good chance to win this golf tournament. So I really like Sung JM there. If you go down again, these next couple guys, most of the time we can eliminate guys. I know I keep saying it, but I like a lot of these guys. It's going to be a hard group for me to eliminate a couple of these guys because Taylor Gooch, we've been on him quite a bit. He's 4 for 4 here with 3 top 25s. Not overly impressive. T15 at Kapalua, like you said, in the shortened field, T27 at Wiley last week. And then our boy Seamus Power. I think, well, collectively, since us three have been doing these shows, I think we've been the most, all in, if you will, on Seamus Power during this run. And, Tambo, off air, you mentioned, he finally got a little bit of a boost, right? He's up now above Corey Connors, who we also like, and we've also been on, but Seamus Power, 9,500. If you haven't been connected to the PGA DFS the last 2-3 months, and you maybe just play here and there and you come up and, I'll play some DFS this week, and you see Power at 9,500, really haven't been following it, you might fall out of your chair. You know what I mean? You might be a little sticker shock, but if you're in the know like we are each week, I mean, it's more than warranted, in my opinion, more than warranted for Seamus Power. He's 28-1, and actually it's a pretty decent value for a guy that's been this hot. So I may even have an outright on Seamus Power. Maybe tonight or tomorrow I might put some dollars down on him to win the golf tournament. Corey Connors, it feels like he's in my player pool every week. I won't mention too much more about him. Matthew Wolff is the interesting one for me because I'm rarely a Matthew Wolff guy, but it feels like he might get it done this week. He hasn't played since the fall swing, but he ended the fall swing 4 for 4, runner-up at Shriners, T5 at Mayakoba. Felt like he had something going. He was one of those guys that was disappointed that the break came, because I'm sure with how well he was playing, that's when you don't want to take a break, right? So we'll see how the little bit of a layoff, if it affected his momentum at all. Abraham Answer, T5 and T2, the last 2 trips here. So I definitely think probably out of this group, him and probably Henley would be the top 2 owned guys. Zalatoris, I'm going to need to see something out of it. Zalatoris, we haven't seen him since early November. I'm not going to play Zalatoris this week. And Russell Henley blew, the talk today too was, did he blow the lead or did Matsuyama just beat him on Sunday? I'm going to go with a little bit of both. I think Hideki obviously played well, hit the shots when he needed to, but 5-shot lead going into the back 9 at any golf tournament for these pros, you typically don't see him blow that kind of lead. So I'm going to put it a little bit that he blew it, a little bit that, Hideki took it from him, but I'm going to be off of Henley this week. He has really bad course history here, and coming off the disappointment last week, I don't really like to go back to him here at 9K.
Yeah, and down the stretch, man, those back-to-back bunker shots when it was needed most. This is where everyone that posts out, I have my gripe the week before with, these guys shot 66 every day and didn't even come in the top 5. Well, no, it's because other guys played better and shot better over the whole tournament. It's like I said, I put up 850, but you needed 910 DraftKings points. You didn't do good enough. And then the second part to it last week was like, Henley, he did nothing wrong. He shot a 65 on Sunday and then just got beat by Hideki. No, he went in the bunker at the time you cannot go in the bunker back to back when the most pressure was on. That's not how you win a golf tournament. There's a lot of luck involved. But listen, Hideki had to step up and make the same 2 shots. And he not only stepped up and drove the damn thing perfectly, he then stepped up and put one. It's early. I said this last night on the podcast with Kenny. It's very early in January of 2022. And that's one of the best shots you'll see all year. I'll call it 11 months early. It's incredible. It was amazing to see the world #1 amateur, like the gentleman, I had his last name down last week, but Nakajima, I think, and he was there watching it live. There was a cool clip of him afterwards, just like blown away by the moment and bowing for Hideki and waiting for him, Japanese descent himself. Just incredible to see that down the stretch. Hideki came out and played better golf. It happened a couple years ago to Gary Woodland, right? He did the same thing. It was the week before in Hawaii, the other tournament, but Xander came from behind and took it from him. It just happens. You can play good, but if you don't play great all throughout, it sometimes happens. It's hard to win golf tournaments. Snyder, this 9K range, you said you like a lot of guys in here. Who are some of the ones that stand out for you?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Uncle T up here with Sungjae. We got, I think, a good flop leg spot here with him after a solid outing at the TOC. Then he comes back and missed the cut at the Sony Open. He did win Shriners late last year, which is another desert type track at the TPC Summerlin. He followed that up with a 9th place at the CJ Cup. Hasn't finished worse than 12th in three starts here. So I think he's definitely a guy to look at here. He can get hot with the putter as well. Taylor Gooch ranks 4th in approach and tee to green over the last 24 rounds, ranks high in opportunities gained and 2nd in eagles as well. I think he's a great high upside guy here, high floor as well. Definitely a guy I'll be considering here. He's 4 for 4 in made cuts here, highlighted by a 4th place finish in 2019. So I'll have Gooch in my pool again, once again. Seamus Power, I mean, we're definitely going to be right back on him again. He just crushes these birdie fests, ranks 14th in birdies or better gained, and 1st in par 5 scoring over the last 24 rounds. The last 3 events have went 3rd, 15th, and 4th. I mean, that price tag continues to rise, but he shot sub 70 in 21 of his last 26 rounds. So he's definitely making a lot of birdies. And I definitely like him here. He's a minus 125 favorite over Russell Henley too. So I'm going to pay that extra $500 and just X Henley and go with Power here. Henley's going to be right around 20% ownership too. I'm seeing him as like the 3rd or 4th highest owned golfer this week. So that's just an easy pivot for me there. I'll just pay the extra money and go with Seamus at half the ownership. No problem there. Corey Connors, 9 straight made cuts, finished 11th last week, gained over 4 strokes of approach in back-to-back events now. He's just that elite ball striker that continues to battle that weak short game. Not sure if I'm going to get to him this week. I can't play all these guys, and he doesn't have the best course history here, so I think I may just have to get off of him here. But he does pop in all the stat models, though, so he's definitely going to have some ownership here. Matthew Wolff, I like him this week. Great birdie maker, strong par 5 player as well. He struggled to start 2021, but did rebound pretty strong at the end of the year. 11th at the Houston Open, 5th at the Mayakoba, 2nd at the Shriners, that desert type track that's similar to this. 17th at the Sanderson Farms, was great tee to green and good with the flat stick in all those events. So I think he's definitely an upside guy here to watch out for. And I don't think he's going to be that highly owned. And the other guy is going to be, he's going to take some ownership here, which kind of surprises me, but well, I guess when you look at his how he sets up for this place, it doesn't surprise me at all. He had a brutal stretch that are on the islands, though. But this is a great landing spot for him to rebound, I think. He 5th here at the MX, 5th and 2nd in his last 2 trips here. He loves playing these Pete Dye tracks, too, as he ranks number 1 overall in these type of tracks over the last 24 rounds. And I like his price tag here, so I'm going to be going with him. Seamus Power and Abe Answer are probably going to be my top 2 guys, with Taylor Gooch and Sung J M right after them. But I'm going to play 4 or 5 of these guys in this range. Wolf's going to be there too. He's got good winning upside. It just comes down to how much ownership I want to allocate to all these guys and how I want to play them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You brought it up there too earlier, how we could just mix, get off some of the top guys and either mix these in with them, or you can switch it up and go to playing just these guys and stack it up sort of the same construction as having 2 at the top in Rahm and Cantlay. Just go down and jam 3 9K guys, get a completely different roster construction. You can still do what everybody else is doing, which is skipping the 8K range, but get there in a different way with, I think, plenty of guys in this range have winning upside. So for me, I saw in the chat, Power is strong play even at the price. I'll pay 9K for Seamus, says Wes. That was Uncle T beforehand answer to the chat. And then you got Gooch and I swap. I like 3 guys here. I like Im. I like Corey Connors, Power. I guess 4 guys, I should say. I like Im, Power, and Wolf. I'll go to Wolf in 2 seconds. The other 2 that I like are Connors and Answer, but I like them a lot less. I think they'll have the majority of the ownership. And for me, I could just see this being the exact same spot. I said it pre-show, maybe even a little bit earlier on this show, where Hideki came through and just crushed Im last week. I think you could see Matthew Wolff just destroy a guy like Answer this week. We know he's got the upside, the par 5 scoring, the easier setup. A buddy of mine texted me right before I hopped on the show and sort of confirmed my thoughts. He said, don't forget the little bit of mental health stuff that Matthew Wolff had going on. He's got a bit of an ego. He said him and George Gankus are very busy on social media right now, showing off their stuff. I don't think you do that if you're not feeling too well going into the tournament. So, when Matthew Wolff was quoted as coming back at the US Open, he said, listen, I showed up here because if I shoot 80 every day, it goes a little more unnoticed. It's tougher track. It's not going to look as bad on me as showing up to a birdie fest and coming DFL. I think he's got to have his stuff here this week, and he's right in between Connors and Answer. I think Wolf is going to show up here. So Power, and Wolf are my 3 favorites. Connors and Answer right behind. I'm with Uncle T on the stuff he mentioned with Henley earlier. And then Zalatoris, as good as he's been at the couple majors and stuff that he's shown, it was the same challenge on the Korn Ferry Tour. He was always in the top 10, not as good with the putter. He always had something dragging him down. And with that price tag, it worries me a little bit more. So I'm going to be on those other guys that I mentioned. Snyder, kick it back to you. We've said it 4 or 5 times. Go ahead, Uncle T. Yeah.
Tambo, we need to take a 30-second break if we can.
Okay. Well, it looks like you're taking one anyway. With your frozen self.
Tough break.
Yeah, you take a break. You take a timeout there, Uncle T, and we'll keep going with this 8K range. When you come back,
Snyder. I mean, we got look at all the attention this guy's getting in the chat. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, hit the like button for our guy Snyder. Hopes he gets lucky tonight. Hits the workbench, man. Got the freshest haircut going. The hatless wonder, I called him. This is the guy, man, right now. Snyder, take us into this 8K range. We've trashed it the whole show because it's got names like Justin Rose, Ricky Fowler, Alexander Noren. But hey, these are names that at one point we were all playing. Maybe it's a little bit in the rearview mirror now, but you've got Cameron Tringali down to Charles Howell, who we liked for course history last week. What are your thoughts on this range?
I don't really see much I like in this range. I know I hear some talk about this guy named Ricky Fowler, priced at 8.5, is going to see some ownership this week, and I couldn't imagine clicking on his name. But, I mean, Tringali's got all right course history here. Some will go to him. I just don't see too much here. Noren's got a couple solid finishes. Siwoo Kim was the defending champ here, does play really well on these die tracks. He's been struggling with his iron play recently, though. Lost over 3 strokes putting last week. He's a guy I might have just in my MME pool just for that Pete Dye upside. But I don't think I'm going to be going to him in like any 3 max format or anything like that. It's just going to be a strict MME guy. Johnny Vegas is another guy I could be talked into. 8.1K is a fine price tag for him. He's made his last 4 cuts here, highlighted by an 11th place finish in 2018. Finished 26th or better in 3 of his last 5 events. Is a guy that I'll look into for GVPs for sure. Has quite a few finishes inside the top 15 last year, so I think he's fine for GVPs as an upside guy. But I really don't have much here, as I'm going to be playing a lot of guys in that 9K range, and then I got quite a few guys in this range below it. So just those 2 guys for MME for me.
Yeah, it's a tough range. Joey Work might want to date, he said, by the way, Snyder. He's interested as well. So you're bringing in everything here tonight. This is awesome. Uncle T, you went frozen when you told us to take a 30-second break. I'm not sure if you know that, but you put yourself on timeout. We'll bring you back in, though. This ain't StreamYard. So what do you got for us here in this 8K range? Talk to us.
Yeah, I saw that as well. And we've had a little bit of snow here in the Cincinnati area the last couple of days, and our internet hasn't been real stable. But anyway, yeah, hopefully you caught me getting on Snyder there a little bit. But no, like we talked about earlier in the show, this is definitely a range where if you wanted to get different, for sure, you're going to have hardly any ownership in this range at all. Probably Patrick Reed, Luke List, maybe Fowler for whatever reason. 10, 11, 12, maybe %. But if you're wanting to get different and you want to maybe grab one of them studs and somehow go and grab 2 or 3 of these guys, at least 2, I think it definitely will be maybe a different route for sure, right? It feels like anyway from what I'm hearing. But I don't mind the Tringali call. He doesn't have the best course history here is the only thing that concerns me with Tringali. He does have a couple top 10s his last 3 events. But you go down, Ricky Fowler, I just can't see it. I'm not really sure why 10% or 11% of the ownership right now, and people would want to play him at 8,500. I mean, if he was in the low 7K range, I think I might be more interested. But, going down, I got a little bit of mild interest in Johnny Vegas, and Luke List might be my favorite all the way down there at 8K. He played some really good golf at the end of the fall swing, 3 top 11 finishes. In his last 4 events, he was one of those guys that, again, didn't want the fall swing to end. So I'll make it really quick, guys. Probably Alex Noren, Luke List, and possibly Johnny Vegas I can be talked into. But other than that, I don't have a whole lot of interest in this range.
Yeah, I couldn't be in more agreement. One guy I will say, and you guys both, I think you mentioned him a little bit at least, but Patrick Reed, like someone said it in the chat, Tringali is not a winner. I know he's going to get talked up. He has good stats. Your fantasy national model will show that he looks good across the last 50 rounds. I get it all, but man, we just had a green jacket winner come out and do his thing last week. It was literally this time last year. It was at the Farmers, which I believe is next week's event that Patrick Reed won at. So he's looking to get fired up. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about Patrick Reed as he needs to make the President's Cup this year on his own run. He's not going to get picked. So he got to go out and he's going to be motivated. He did better than Tony Finau at the Century. If you don't want to talk about a price break over the guy that you're moving up to the top at 10.2K. So I think Patrick Reed's a fine play, has a good all around game. I think he's fine to go to here. A guy that actually wins on tour, can come out and give you some real upside at 8,800. He's not my favorite play on the board, but in this 8K range where I don't like a lot, listen, even the guys at the bottom of the 8K range, I can get behind. I like Johnny Vegas. I like Luke List. But again, you talking about guys that win. What, like I said, Patrick Reed, been a winner. Don't care if you call him a cheater or whatever. I'm playing daily fantasy, which in the world of PGA is weekly. All I give a shit about is what he does to me on my rosters this week. And we're talking about this field at $8,800. I'm willing to take a shot on some lineups. So I like Reed. I like Vegas. I like List. That's really all I got here in this 8K range. There's not too much else to talk about. The Ricky Fowler thing, like, again, you could spin a narrative on anybody that you want to. You could say Siwoo won here last year. You could say Ricky does well on desert courses and was okay a few weeks ago, or like a few tournaments ago. I apologize. Like things like that you can make up and say, but the bottom line is he's 8,500. If he beats us, and we move on. It's very early in the season. We got like 40 more weeks of this shit. You'll have all kinds of time to find your way back if Ricky Fowler decides to show up at this tournament and do his job at $8,500. So I'll leave it with that. Let's go to the 7K range, and we are going to split it up like my boy Snyder said. I'm going to go to you first this time, Uncle T. We got Adam Hadwin, the Canadian course history buff, right here at 7,900, going down to who do we want to give the torch to at 7,500? Let's go Munoz, Mr. Flex Seal himself. So go down to the 7,500 range and up, leave the rest of the range below for after. We'll go through this top range first.
Yeah, pretty solid range for me, to be honest. Again, based off of what we've talked about already in the show, I'm going to be landing on several of these guys. So at the very top, what'll be interesting for me right now, I'm thinking about, one of the guys that has probably some of the most elite course history here, but will be popular is Adam Hadwin. A second or 2 seconds, a third. He did finish 32nd here last year. Probably going to fade Adam Hadwin. I'll typically do this a little bit where you'll see a guy in the mid to lower range where he's getting a lot of ownership, has the good course history, and I'll just randomly try to fade him just to try to get different a little bit. No other reason. I mean, he's not in the greatest form. He does have a top 10, a few tournaments ago, but again, that's going back to the fall swing. Probably my favorite guy in the range up top is Chris Kirk. He's a guy that we've been on quite a bit. He's 100-1 to win the golf tournament at 7,800. Pretty good course history, kind of boomer bust, couple top 20s, couple missed cuts, but been playing some pretty good golf. Russell Knox is an interesting one. It's a guy that we don't talk about a ton. He's been on the tour for quite a while, obviously. 7,800 feels a little steep for him. We're usually seeing him in the low 7K range most tournaments. So not really sure about the price tag on Russell Knox, but I do think he fits this course pretty well. Going down a little bit, Brendan Todd. I have a lot of interest in Brendan Todd here. Adam Long is probably the most interesting outside of Kirk for me in this range. Adam Long won here in 2019. I think he won over Phil Mickelson, if I'm not mistaken. I think Phil finished second that year, but got a lot of interest in him. Another guy that's going to carry ownership, and this is what I might do, guys, and I'll see what you guys think. Hadwin and Michael Thompson, at least, are really close, at least from what I'm looking at in ownership. I might go down to Michael Thompson if I want to grab a guy with some ownership here and save the, $400 or so and go down to Michael Thompson. Been playing some real good golf, coming off a T5 last week at Wiley, closed with a 63 on Sunday. So for me, I may just go down to Michael Thompson instead of Hadwin. So, and then that'll do it for that range. I don't have maybe a little bit of sprinkle of Doug Gim just because he's not the most consistent guy out there, but he does have upside.
Yeah, the year you were talking about earlier, that was Adam Long getting the job done right in front of Phil Mickelson and and Adam Hadwin. Actually, both were right there. I remember that year quite clear. So, yeah, he's a guy that, the chat just mentioned could be a good flop leg. Fran Millionaire, our boy, he said, hit that 80-1 on Munoz. No, thank you. I don't think he's winning the tournament. Remember about this range, the excitement here is that they can do their job, outscore. Wes mentioned it earlier about Luke List's price. I don't love it either, being at 8,000, but like I said, easily he can make an eagle. There's par fives out there that he can get after, and maybe a couple, and that's going to make up for it, do enough to make the cut, to get that final round in, and then take what you get from them. It's just more of a, speaks to the range where it's not that ideal to play a bunch of those guys. I just don't see the value there. I'll start with you, Snyder. I'll move back to you, Snyder, and start with Adam Hadwin. I was just going to say there's definitely another Canadian named Adam in this field I feel better about than Adam Hadwin, but we'll get to him later. What are your thoughts on the range, Adam Hadwin down to Sebastian Munoz?
Yeah, I'm not sure quite what I'm going to do with Adam Hadwin yet. He's made his last 5 cuts, but hasn't really had no upside since the Shriners where he finished 6th, but that was that desert type course. Interesting. The short game has been strong for him. He's kind of struggled off the tee in 2021, 6 for 6 here, 4 finishes of 6 or better, and his 6 made cuts here. Has hit his irons great here. He's gained putting in every trip here. So I'm gonna have to come back to him as the week kind of progresses and figure out exactly what I want to do with him. Cam Champ's a guy I was kind of hoping to play a couple weeks ago and was out, but I think he's going to be a low-owned target here. He's got good birdie upside. He can bomb it off the tee. He can attack these par fives well. I think he's a solid GPP upside play here with pretty much no ownership. Russell Knox is a guy I'll have some interest in. Solid event history here, but looks to be a little higher owned than I don't know if I'm going to quite get to him or not. He's in that same bucket as Hadwin. I think he's got solid course history here, but I think he's going to be a little higher owned, so not sure where I'm going to land there quite yet. Adam Long's off that missed cut last week after 4 straight top 25s. He didn't play well in his first round, shot 67 in the second round though, so he kind of had a little bit going towards him at the end of that event. Ranks high in par 5 scoring, won this event back in 2019, as you guys were saying. I think he comes in a little lower owned in this range, and he's gonna, with the other guys picking up some steam. He has made 20 plus birdies in 2 of his last 4 events, so he's got that big birdie upside we're looking for. So he'll definitely make his way into my pool. Michael Thompson, I like that call as well. 6 straight made cuts coming off that 5th place finish at the Sony. The irons finally popped last week, so I definitely hope he can carry that over here. Has finished inside the top 10 in 2 of his last 3 trips here. Shot 63 on Sunday, so he's got that good mojo carrying over into this event. Hopefully the irons stay hot and he can make some putts here. So in this top tier range, it's not sure what I'm going to do with Hadwin and Knox yet, but I'm going to have some Champ and GPPs. I'm going to have Long, and I'm going to have Thompson for sure.
Yeah, I like the Thompson call quite a bit. Played well last week. He's got a good history, everything going with him. So he makes some sense. The trouble I have here, and I know you didn't speak to it, but you just dropped it in the chat, Uncle T, the Varner and the Hadwin chalk, especially if we'll see how it goes with Hadwin, but maybe more people can talk themselves off that because he usually is a lot of putter. It is just course history based. It seems at least as though the fields have moved off of that a little bit. It'll bring some ownership, but maybe not as much as you might think. Varner should definitely be chalk here though, based on, like I said, just this upper 7K range and the 8K range not being strong. People will see the numbers, the stat models, etc., show him as a good value play and move to him there. Look, you could talk yourself in or out of him. I don't remember Varner chalk ever working out, but my biggest challenge is all the guys around him. Like you said, I like Russell Knox, played well last week, has been in the mix here before, does pretty well in desert courses, things like that. I like Kirk. He's always been a staple over here at RPS. So Chris Kirk and Knox up top. I like Grillo. I like Glover. I like Munoz. I like Griffin, and I like Thompson. Like, I don't need him. If I needed him and he goes out and crushes me, then so be it. But like I said, just that's where you got to look at it and say, okay, if I'm going to have Rahm in my lineup already and I'm going to have Connors, and that's where you're starting, you've already got ownership or Answer, whoever you might have up above. And that's what makes it tough to sort of just jam these guys in and say, oh, well, because they're not locks. Like there's not like, oh, I have to play Varner or my week is going to be done. How often has that happened? Not enough. He can come top 10 here, and that's going to be trouble for the week. Yes, but I'm just using it as the example that going into it which is what we have to look at. Your roster construction has to be a little bit different. And this is the best place to do it down here in this 7K range. Clicking back to you, Snyder, going to stay with you here. 7,400 down to 7,000. I'm sure there's a lot more guys in here that you like as well. Who are some of the guys that stand out for you this week?
Yeah, I'm definitely more bullish on the bottom of this range. I'm going to start right off with KH Lee. He's been playing good since that 3M Open last summer, making 10 of his last 11 cuts, 6 finishes inside the top 25. Plays these die tracks well, and he's made 2 cuts here, so I definitely am going to be going back to KH Lee there. My guy, Taylor Moore, he was my flag playing off the Korn Ferry Tour this year. Played really well in the swing season, finished 17th at the Sanderson Farms, 24th at the Shriners, 8th at the RSM. His at just over 300 off the tee on average, was top 25 in driving accuracy on the Korn Ferry Tour. So definitely like that. Was 10th in greens and regulations in that season on the Korn Ferry Tour. So he's going to be hitting the greens. Birdie making, he's made 20 plus birdies in all 3 of those PGA starts. So I definitely think he's got the scoring upside needed here. Brendan Steele's all right. He's got course history here. That's pretty solid. Made his last 7 cuts. He's interesting. Hayden Buckley's another Korn Ferry Tour guy I'll be looking at. He's rolling in off that 12th place finish at the Sony Open last week. Had a couple top 10s to end the year at the Shriners and Sanderson's Farms too. So he's been solid across the board stats-wise in those starts. 9th in greens and regulation on the Korn Ferry Tour. Hits the fairway a lot of times. Definitely like him there. All 4 rounds were 67 or lower at the Sony Open too. And he fired a 63 at the Shriners. So we know he can go low. Tom Hoagie's an interesting bounce back guy here. Missed the cut last week after making 6 straight cuts. Did shoot 66 in that first round last week, but then shot 72 to miss the cut. So I don't have a problem going back to him here. He's got a couple good finishes here. John Huh, he's kind of like a boom bust GPP guy I'm looking for. Went miscut 12th, miscut 15th in his last 4 events. I think he's got some good upside here. Andrew Putnam's another guy I'll be looking at here a little bit. He had a rough 2021, but ended up making 7 of the last 9 cuts. Played well last week at the Sony Open, finished 27th. I definitely have some consideration for him. And Adam Svensson, I'll have some of him as well. It doesn't hit the ball long off the tee, but he's going to hit it straight, and he's going to find a lot of greens in regulation. So I definitely like going to him. 7th at the Sony Open last week, gained over 6 strokes approach, has multiple wins on the Korn Ferry Tour, so I'm going to be on him as well. My top guys in this lower range is definitely going to be Taylor Moore, Hayden Buckley, and KH Lee. And then I'm going to sprinkle in the rest of these guys as well.
Yeah, and I like the Lee and Moore calls more than most. I was just bringing up something from last week here. I'll go to you in a second there, Uncle T. But just remember, too, like this is where the ownership gets really spaced out. I know it was the 6K range last week for this conversation, but I think this week it'll be this lower 7K range when we talk about this, where, oh, no, this guy is getting talked about, and this guy's getting I can't play him now because of this. Last week, Hubbard and Armour, people were starting to say at the end of the week, like, oh, they're just going to be super chalk. I don't know if I can play them. And then Hubbard came in at 6% and Armour came in below 2%. So just because we're talking about them and as excited about them as we sound, doesn't mean that they're going to come in as popular. So sort of play your plays and know it. But if you're talking about a guy like Varner, yes, he's going to garner more ownership. Varner will garner more ownership, if you will. So there you go. Go down to this range, play who you like. Just don't jam all the chalk. Uncle T, 7,400 down to 7K. Who do you like?
Yeah, another good range. Like I said, we're going to be utilizing a lot of these guys with our builds. So KH Lee, don't mind that call at all. Taylor Moore is a guy that, guys, I look at the odds more than most, 80-1 right now on DK Sportsbook. He's 7,300 here. Obviously at 80-1, you're not getting maybe the value as far as winning upside, which again, these guys down here, they don't have a ton of winning upside. You're just looking at a big number. Maybe you can catch lightning in a bottle. Only 80-1 around guys that are 130, 150-1. So from a DFS standpoint, it's hard to not go to Taylor Moore in this range at $7,300. He's an elite value option right now in this range. Last played mid-November, T8 at the RSM Classic, so that's a little concerning. He's had a little bit of time off. I don't mind the Buckley call down there. Steele, I have a little bit interest in, although he's coming in with some pretty poor form. Aaron Rye, one of Snyder's guys. I don't think Snyder mentioned him. Aaron Rye, I don't have I have a little bit of interest in Aaron Rye this week at $7,100. And then going down, Adam Svensson, yeah, he finished T7 last week. At the Sony, the Canadian, near and dear to your heart, Tambo.
Yeah.
I like me some Adam Svensson this week. Taylor Pendrith is another guy that I've played quite a bit this year, and I think this course sets up okay for him. Hasn't played here, obviously. He is coming off a miscut, but don't mind him either. So if we go back up, one other guy that I did want to mention at the top, Kevin Streelman, 7,400. Haven't heard a whole lot about him. Doesn't have the greatest course history, but he is a guy that came on a little bit in 2021. And I don't know. I might put him in my player pool for the big Streel Daddy.
Streel Daddy, as we like to call him. I think I'll save him for the Pebble Beach Pro-Am coming up here in a couple of weeks, but I get the play. I do think this range is strong. Snyder mentioned some of my favorites, KH Lee, Taylor Moore. Those guys are some great plays. Svensson, though, just a note on him. I don't know as many people know this and the back history and things like that. Like Bubba Watson's old caddy, just to speak to the talent of this kid, and they tweeted it out last week, but Ted Scott, who was on Bubba Watson's bag, went to Svensson's bag. The only reason he left Svensson, this is like, I know it's, you think like high schoolish. He left this guy for this, like it is what it is, but he left him for Scotty Scheffler. So I think he picked a pretty damn good guy to move on to, the rookie of the year, Scotty Scheffler. Didn't put a win in his bag yet, but still, that's pretty nice. The talent's there. And now Tim Tucker on the bag last week is Bryson's former caddy, who probably just doesn't like working 12-hour or 15-hour days on Tuesdays and when, getting lined up for everything that he's got to do. So I think that Svensson is a talent that many just won't think about. It wasn't just last week. I think he's a great play down here at 7,000. You've got another Adam right there who we like to play. Here's the other guys. We used to play a lot of these guys. You got another Adam Schenk. You got another Taylor beyond Taylor Moore and Taylor Pendrith, another Canadian, by the way. Put him in there. You got Tom Hoagie, Hayden Buckley, who you mentioned, and Alex Smalley. We were on him again last week. I like him. And then Fran, again, mentioned in the chat, one thing to bring up. He did go to a college nearby. It's a university, actually. Stanford, you might have heard of it, is where Patrick Rogers went in California. So definitely a good spot to get some upside and some talent there. Had himself a pretty good, end of the year, rounding out his year to try and do some stuff and get back on our radar. So I got no problem going back to him. So for me, KH Lee, Taylor Moore, Alex Smalley, Tom Hoagie, Putnam was a guy mentioned in the chat. And then I really like Svensson down at the bottom. I'll bring him up again later on. Let's move on. Here's the thing, Snyder. We got 91 guys in this 6K range. I only have about maybe 5 to talk about personally. I can star 10 of them or 12 of them. They're not all going to make the pool. I'm happier to stay in that lower 7K range that we just talked about and try and round out my lineups there, even if I do go stars and scrubs or drop down from the 5-figure guys to 3 9K guys. So what are your thoughts here on this 6K range? Some of the guys that stand out for you.
Yeah, I've really only got 4 guys starred that I'm even going to consider. I think too many people are going to just force in too many of these low-owned guys just because they have quote-unquote 3 rounds with them, and that could kill you. These guys down here I don't think they're any that good at all. We've got the expanded field here this week, too. I think it's up to 154 players this week, too. So I'm just going to take it easy and just play the guys I have some conviction on, and I have some I think they're going to be able to pay off their price tag fairly easy. I'm going to start off with Dylan Wu. He's made his last 3 cuts on tour since finishing 20th at the Sony Open last week. Gained over 5 strokes approach there. Sneaky with the putter, but was 12th on the Korn Ferry Tour in total birdies last season. Came across this stat about him playing in a Pro-Am with this kind of a slower pace setting, and he finished 13th on that. So he should be used to this slower play style here. Davis Riley's another Korn Ferry Tour guy. He's won multiple times on the Korn Ferry Tour. Finished 7th at the Bermuda, 29th at the Houston Open, and 20th last week at the Sony Open. He's pretty bad around the greens. So, if he can get really hot with a flat stick, though, but he's bad around the greens. And he needs to be hitting his irons well. If he's missing greens, he's going to be in a world of trouble. So I still think he's great for GPPs and such. But Sahith Theegala, I think he's way underpriced here. I think he should be in that 7K range. He's a Cali native, opened with a 65 at the Sony Open, but couldn't really get much going after that. Still finished lower on the field. I think he was in the 50s or something, but this course sets up much better for him. He's more familiar with the setup. He's just a kid with a lot of raw talent. I think he's gonna break through with some pretty big finishes this year. Finished 8th at the Sanderson Farms last year, so I think he's definitely a guy with top 10 upside here in this field. I think he should be priced a little higher, so I like the value on him. Another guy kind of burned me last week was this Max McGreevy, or however you say that. He kind of burned me, though. It was one of his worst ball striking outings I could see on some recorded data I was looking at. So I'm going to go right back to him here. He did finish T20 in his previous 2 PGA starts. Has a ton of raw talent too. Won 3 times in the NCAA for the individual title. So he's definitely got a lot of upside and raw talent there. Boom bust nature though. Just another guy I'll be looking at in the 6K range for GPPs. But mainly I'm going to be playing Sahith Theegala. Quite a bit high ownership, I think, here. I'm going to just plant my flag on him, kind of mix in some of those other studs around like Theegala, Wu, and some of these low 7K guys, and just try and avoid as much of this 6K range as I can, as I think people are just going to jam in some of these guys. But, I mean, there's some fine guys here. You could look at like a Chad Ramey or Scott Stallings, Harry Higgs, Dylan Fertilli's down here. I mean, Nick Taylor, Grayson Sigg. I mean, you can go to a lot of these guys, Hank Lebioda, Hudson Swafford, but I think I'm just going to limit what I do down here and just mainly focus on that low 7K range and a couple of these 6K guys.
Yeah, I like that call. A couple of things that you brought up, 2 thoughts that I have before I flip to you, Uncle T. Just some of the guys that I think have the same talent or you would put into the same bucket as the guys, if you're talking Korn Ferry Tour guys like Bramlett, Cameron Young, these guys to me are no different than your Ramey, those guys of going up to Moore and Pendrith and guys like that. So like they can fall into the same bucket. You could literally go to your best Pendrith lineup and drop it down and put Cameron Young. Like they're both talented golfers coming off the Korn Ferry Tour, not to say one or the other, just to give you an example, but you could leave the money on the table, play that guy, and it wouldn't be that much different to me. So I got no problem with that. And then the other side of it is just maybe some guys that had hot rounds or decent turnouts last week. Like you mentioned, Dylan Wu had a great week last week. If he stays popular, can go there. Benet asked about Ryder. I like Sam Ryder. My boy Kenny Kim loved him. Put him right in the cash game cornerstones. Again, he reminds me of Mark Hubbard from last week. I hope it doesn't remind me in the sense that he's going to do horrible. I'm not saying that, but from the ownership perspective, because the question was, is he going to be popular? Not popular enough to matter. There, to me, with 91 guys down here and how many guys we mentioned, the 7K range and the spread of ownership from the way people are playing stars and scrubs, there's going to be so much ownership spread out down here that if he comes in at 6 or 7%, that's not why he misses the cut. There's other guys that you could play, absolutely, but 6 or 7% is not going to hurt you in the grand scheme of things. So guys like that, for me, Uncle T, what do you got down here in the 6K range?
Yeah, Tambo, you mentioned 91 guys, you said, under 7K. I think Schneider mentioned 71 of those 91. Didn't leave Uncle T a whole lot of wiggle room with my comments, but obviously just kidding, Snyder. But yeah, I mean, these are guys that we don't, we're not going to feel comfortable with most weeks. And this week, it really feels like it's slim pickings down here for sure. Dylan Wu, don't mind that call at all. Davis Riley, 6,800. I think he's a pretty decent punt value here coming off the T20 at the Sony. Talented 25-year-old golfer. Don't mind him. Grayson Sigg, we played a little bit last week, made the cut. Hank Lebioda is actually probably my top guy in this range. He grades out pretty well, which is interesting because he doesn't have the greatest course history. He's got a miscut, a 62nd, and then he's got a 17th. Hasn't been playing very well either, but he grades out fairly well. So I like that call, Snyder. Sahith Theegala and Hudson Swafford, I like both of those guys at 6,700. Swafford, a former past champion here back in, I think, 2016 or 2017. So I don't mind that call. And then going down a little bit, a couple guys they mentioned, you guys talked about Sam Ryder. I had him earmarked down here as a true punt at 6,400. And then also a guy that it just completely fell off at the end of last year that was very playable most weeks. JT Poston at the beginning of 2021, he was a guy that we could fill in our lineup a little bit here and there at certain tournaments. And he's just been really, really bad. And again, he's 6,400. He has decent course history here. Not sure if I'm going to go there, but if you want a complete punt down there at 6,400, I don't mind him. But yeah, it's definitely slim pickings down here. I'm going to probably set, I don't know if you guys either one talked about it. I don't know that I'll play 2 of these guys in any lineup. It's just going to be hard for me to play 2 of them, I think. I don't think it's wrong if you find 2 that you like and want to go up top, like Bill we talked about earlier, but I'm going to have a hard time probably playing 2. So I'll probably limit it to just one guy.
Yeah, it's not like a rule all set down here because I don't care that much. Like I said, if you go, just scrolling up the board, if you went to Whaley and Buckley and instead decided to play Bramlett and Cameron Young, like I really don't see that much of a difference if it happened. So I'm not going to say let's not do it, but I'm just saying I definitely don't want to play 3 of them. Like I don't see any reason for that. I think there's more than enough guys in that 7K range. It's not something I'll force either way on the 2 though. A couple other guys. So, just talking from last week. So Sabatini is a guy I think has upside down here at 6,900. I like the Davis Riley call. He fits into the younger guys. Let me do it this way. So if you go this way, Sabatini, CT Pan, Swafford, and then I had one more, Nate Lashley. Those would be the 4 that I look at. Like, okay, we know these guys. They've been on tour. They have potential upside. They're all guys that could show up at any given time that I think are actually solid and have some reasoning down below. When you go to the young guys or the up-and-comers, if you will, like we talked about, I think it is like Dylan Wu, Davis Riley, Chad Ramey, Cameron Young, Grayson Sig, and Joseph Bramlett. There's my 10K range. Like I said, I've starred them all. That doesn't mean I'm going to play them all. It's just that's where I could see the guys of the 91. That's like 10 guys that I think there's some breakdown too. You got to pick your spots down here. We talked about already a little bit with ownership. We talked about some strategy with how you're going to build. I just think I got no problem taking some shots on some of these guys. I just think you don't have to get too aggressive with it. We loved that 7K range. Sometimes I'll do like a bottom up build where I'll just grab 3 or 4 7K guys in like a hand build and then see what fits. If you do that tonight, you'll be able to see that you can fit pretty much any combination of the guys in the 9K. You can pick a ROM and 9K. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about it. I know Wes just asked about Wesley Bryan. Not for me. Like I said, there's you take your stance, pick your guys down here and play them. Like I said, I only want to pick that many because I want to make sure I've got a fair amount of ownership of guys down below. And then I'm willing to spread it out a little bit more up top because I don't know the difference. Like this week, it's even crazier. Last week, I talked about some of the 2v2s. You can play Answer and Sung Jae Im or Gooch and Connors. Like, you don't know the answer to that going in. No, anybody can tell you their thoughts and pick their side, but nobody knows the answer. The same upside is in both. They're all great golfers. I'd rather have my 4 value plays that I'm sticking with and then rotate some of those 2v2s up top of guys that obviously can win, that it's much harder to tell the difference. I'm choosing to take a difference down below. It's different when it's like the 7K, 30% owned guy, like a Varner we talked about, where that's totally different. I don't think he's far and away and above all the guys around him. So that's why I don't care about if I lose out on him this week, and so be it. I'll just play the other guys around him because there's 10 more. That's where it gets a little bit different with roster construction. Snyder, anything else that you want to finalize with here before we get out of here for this week? We'll talk winners and everything, Uncle T. Don't worry, I got you. But just any final thoughts on anything here with this tournament?
No, down here in this 6K range, I think I'm just going to be leaning on more of these younger guys with, I think, more pop in their step, a little more upside, but nothing else here down in the 6K range. I think it's just going to be a fun event. I'm just going to be looking to try and differentiate my lineups as much as possible, whether that comes to leaving extra money on the table or just grouping up these 9K golfers different and playing one out of that 10K range. Or it's just, I'll be in Discord more and I'll have something more fine-tuned as I get my tiers and cores up as well.
Yeah, get around your cores, right? Once you pick them up, we'll have our cores and tiers over at Run Pure Sports, be able to check all those out and start putting the lineups together from there. That's really where a lot of my upside came from last week. It was just the tiers were solid. We had the right mix. Ryan Armour was in there, little things that made things work that maybe weren't enough to take it right down, but JSU was right up there. Hoop took down the tournament he was in. So hit the like button for us, guys. We're going to give our winners here in a minute. We appreciate it. It definitely helps us out. We're going to pick our winners and our long shots. Uncle T, any final thoughts for the Amex this week? If not, give us your winner and then give us your long shot for the week.
Yeah, not much on the rest of this week's tournament. But again, guys, before I get to my winner and long shot, we've got a great stretch of golf. I know that there's going to be a couple weeks where I might not make it here in the next few. But, guys, we've got one of my favorite tournaments coming up, Torrey Pines next week. Then they go to Pebble Beach for the Pro-Am, the Waste Management at TPC, Scottsdale, and then Riviera. So, and that'll lead into where we get into the the first major of the year. So it's some great golf. We appreciate the chat. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us every Tuesday. We love interacting with the chat and we love our golf guys. So, but without further ado, guys, I had 2 guys in the 9K range coming into the show. I was going to grab one of them for my winner. I've decided on one. If you guys can think of who it is, drum roll, please. It is going to be Matthew Wolff. Now, tread lightly here because I usually don't take Matthew Wolff and I usually don't have him a whole lot in my player pool, but I think Matthew Wolff at 28 to 1 is going to be my outright winner. I do like Sung J M if I wanted to give you another one. But my long shot this week, 100 to 1 on DK Sportsbook, $7,800 on DK. Chris Kirk. I think Chris Kirk could play well this week, 100 to 1. I think gives you some decent value.
Yeah, I like the Kirky call. Like we say, he's always a Run Pure Sports specialist for us. So happy about that one. I like him over your Streelman call earlier too, right there in that same range. I'll be honest. Snyder, what do you got here? Winner and long shot for the Amex.
I'm going to go with my guy, Shameless Power. I've seen on Bet365, what's the best number I could find on him. So it's always good to kind of price shop your numbers here, get some good numbers here and there. A lot of these books are going to have different numbers. So I got Shameless Power at 40 to 1. So I think that's pretty good for his winning upside. He's got a past winner on tour, so I definitely like his upside for that number. And I'm going to go with my guy, Taylor Moore down there at FanDuel. I've seen he's 100 to 1. So definitely like that upside too with Taylor Moore there. I think he's got the birdie upside. He's ready to win. And I think he's going to win. Like I said, like on our first show, I think Taylor Moore's going to win one time this event and this season. So might as well start here. I think 100 to 1 is a good number on him.
Yeah, my guys, I like the Taylor Moore call, like I mentioned earlier with you. I'm there. My guy's $300 cheaper on DraftKings and a little bit longer, 160 to 1. Adam Svensson. Forget Adam Hadwin. Nice. I'm not no course history guy. This ain't no hobby, as Kisner likes to say. I'm going with the longer shot. I like the Adam Svensson call. Like I said, a talented individual. There's a reason these caddies are hopping on his bag. They know he's got the upside. They've talked about, like I said, been vocal even on Twitter this past week, talking about all his wins in the past, from everything from coming up as a kid all the way to now. I think he actually has the upside more than people think. So definitely a good play in DFS and a great long shot bet. My winner at the top is John Rahm, but that's too easy because his odds. So I said it yesterday on the Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast. I posted it on Twitter. John Colin Morikawa is my pick this week at 60 to 1. And for those that don't know what that is, you're betting John Rahm here at the Amex. You're betting Colin Morikawa in Abu Dhabi. You put those two together for what's called a double, and you get 60 to 1 odds. So I put the big money on that this week. I like it, to be honest, quite a bit. I think these guys are just head and shoulders above the rest of the field. It's not easy to win on tour. We talked about it, but like I said, you go back just a couple weeks ago, Rahm, what was the situation there? C game, like we talked about. Cam Smith, A++ game, still almost loses to Rahm. That's just how good he is right now. Morikawa, it's tougher to say. He's there with Rory, some other guys, but his talent is just too good and has been able to show up at many places, like winning 2 majors already, including the Open, which is a hard one to get. So just an incredible career going for himself already. Appreciate you boys. Always fun being back on here with you. For Snyder, for Uncle T, I'm Toe Tag and Tambo. Simon, get us out of here, man.